There's a study, a multicultural media spending study that came out of the Association of National Advertisers. And this is an organization out of the US that was founded in 1910. They've been around a long time. And here's the study out of New York. It was published back in 2019. And the study says multicultural consumers comprise almost 40% of the total US population, yet multicultural media investments make up only 5.2% of the total advertising and marketing spend, according to this study. And this was something fascinating to me because I think that as a strategist myself, I always look at multiple sources of data to get a broader 360 view of whatever I'm thinking or talking about with our teams and even our clients to make decisions long term. I think that indicator of the spend represents a few things. A, the potential for the market to continue to grow and catch up with what's really happening in reality. And number two, it gives us a sense of where the current thinking is and maybe stuck in certain decision-making centers. Would love for your perspective and commentary on that thinking.
Thank you so much for sharing that study. I'm familiar with that stat, and that stat, I feel like it's been stuck at that level of 5% or less of spend for probably a good decade or so, but I've seen tremendous momentum in movement of that number in the last 2 years. So from 2020 to today, 2022, there's definitely been momentum to supercharge and increase that level of investment, I think, on the brand side and the client side. And I think a lot of it has been driven by Declan, brands being woke to, the world around us, and also realizing that number that was shared in that study, 40% are multicultural or diverse. I would argue that number is just as high as it is in Canada, but the spend in Canada is probably between 5 to 10%, if I'm being generous, of most corporate spends that I've seen. And, the challenge that myself and other multicultural agencies face is being able to justify to a predominantly non-diverse or non-ethnic buyer why this is important for them to embrace from a consumer acquisition point of view.
I hear you as a leader being very sensitive to addressing folks that are not necessarily as blessed with sun-kissed skin or melanated. You're using the term, non-ethnic buyer. But it's curious, we've come up with these remarkable acronyms to describe people of different ethnicities. I think BIPOC is how you say the most recent one that I'm aware of. But at some point, what I think will change, and this is, I'm of a South Asian heritage in my family, in my culture, and in terms of what I think will start shifting, and I think you and I will observe this while we're here in our leadership roles, is that terms like BIPOC represent the perceivably, in this case, what was once called visible minorities now become BIPOC. And I think as economic spending or spending power in these groups continue to increase, I think you're actually going to see, a transition in nomenclature. Because when the economic shifts start happening to the point where there's an equalization, if you will, of spend and impact in places like politics and academia and the medical community and law and so on, terms like BIPOC today may become, and this is something I create because I how much time I have at my hands, zero time on my hands, but I still find time to be creative. This term, POC, BIPOC, the people of color, that may eventually become something like, how would you pronounce if I spell the word PONC, people of no color? Okay. And that terminology may actually start emerging in the next 20 years or so, where the shifts are going to be so dramatic that we, i.e. we, the folks that are sharing this message of inclusiveness and diversity, will be marketing to folks, and I call the acronym PUNC, P-O-N-C, PUNC, the punks, people of no color in the decades to come because of the shifts that will be taking place.